A warning before we begin. This episode contains very graphic descriptions of violence. I found it very upsetting and distressing, so listen with caution. Hannah and Georgia are in a taxi.
Do you know this area?
I do, a little bit. A lot of my friends when I was in Leicester lived here.
They're on their way to see the parents of someone who went to Hannah's old school.
Yeah.
I left Leicester High when I was about 14, and Alice joined my year. She became best friends with all of my best friends, and I knew a lot about her. Obviously, I was at a different school and moved on with my life, but
Alice's story has become a warning
I just feel a bit shaken up tonight,
of what can happen if stalking cases aren't treated seriously.
It can be classed as harassment.
Yeah.
Which is what Hannah wants to speak to her parents about.
it feels emotional talking. It's going to be a lot, I think.
Just be yourself.
Yeah.
From the BBC, this is Stalked.
I'm Carole Cadwalladr.
And I'm Hannah Mossman-Moore.
Episode 8. Alice.
Thank you.
Clive and Sue, Alice's parents, welcome them in. There's a dog who seems excited to see them. They put the kettle on and they sit round a large oak dining table in their kitchen.
I've found in my experience dogs tend to really like the fluffy bit of a microphone.
It's a quintessential English cottage, a family home with photos dotted all around.
Is that Alice?
That's Alice.
Oh, that's Alice. It's a good hat.
It's great, isn't it?
Not too many pictures of Alice.
Both Alice and Hannah went to the same school, Leicester High School for Girls.
My mum was a teacher at Leicester High.
Oh, was she?
Yeah.
Oh, it is a small world.
Yeah.
Wow.
Drama. Dance and drama.
Hannah moved schools the year that Alice started.
I remember all of my best friends saying, oh, this amazing girl called Alice has joined the year. And she sort of took my place, and I would see her in pictures, and I sort of knew of her.
Right, yeah.
So I was at Leicester High in year 9. So Alice just slotted in where I left off.
Almost overlapped,
Yeah.
but didn't quite.
It's crazy.
Sue also teaches at Leicester High. Clive is a university professor. And Alice,
So what was Alice working as?
She was at Sky. She'd been there answering the phones for about a few weeks, and they discovered she was capable of more things and invented a job for her. So they called her site coordinator, and she basically organised. Yeah.
What was your relationship?
Oh, it was brilliant. Alice was like my best friend, like everything. I just loved her.
Happy, really happy that we brought up Alice to be as she was. Insofar as we were an influence on her, that's brilliant. And obviously sad in that how she was, I suppose, had to factor in bringing this about because of how he exploited that.
he being Alice's ex-boyfriend.
I mean, we first met him. They came down to visit us. It was the May Bank Holiday weekend, I remember that. And that was when we first met him. Being honest with myself, looking back, there was nothing about him that made me think, I don't like this guy. There's something really wrong about this guy.
But gradually, Sue began to notice things.
He wanted to know where Alice was all the time, and he wanted to be on the phone all the time, and he didn't like her to go off and do things if, he wanted her to talk to him. And he'd also started this whole business of trying to put her down and making comments about her appearance. And
Behaviour that gradually led Alice to want to break up with him.
when she said, I don't want to go out with you anymore, that's when he started saying, no, I'm in control of this. You're not allowed to say that.
Undeterred, Alice broke up with him anyway. And not long after, she met someone else.
I'm really pleased that Alice met a new partner. At least she knew that she was worth more.
Just as Alice was embarking on this new relationship, her old boyfriend reappeared.
He found out about it, and they'd been keeping it an absolute secret. So we're convinced he had spyware on her phone. But we don't think there's any other way he could have known about that, because he then used that to make contact directly with a new boyfriend and say, well, actually, do you realise she belongs to me? Belongs, doesn't that say it all? We know he'd got control of her Facebook account at the time because she knew that. He'd got the password. She must have left her phone around sometime. And he actually threatened at one point to put out compromising pictures on. We never found out whether they actually existed, but he made the threat and she couldn't get control back.
It was utterly constant. He didn't let up at all. He was constantly messaging her, sending her emails, and most of it, there was a lot of stuff he did, quite clever stuff that we never really understood. And he put messages on a Facebook wall, and Alice would tell her sister about them, and her sister would look, and they'd been deleted and they'd gone. And so Emma and Alice took to screenshotting things all the time because they were beginning to doubt were they imagining this stuff happening.
The type of confusion we've heard time and again making this series. We've also heard about persistence.
He just consistently contacted her through any means he could, and it sort of oscillated between, begging her to go back out with him and being abusive and horrible, and he just wanted contact.
Did Alice share all of this with you as it was happening? Or is this stuff that you found out later?
This is a mixture. We did know that she was being stalked beforehand, but we didn't understand how dangerous stalking could be. And I remember talking to Alice's sister about it, and we were saying, well, what can we do? And we were sort of talking about things like moving away from the area, changing her name, and really extreme things like that. And in our heads we're thinking, it seemed like something that you might see in some sort of weird film, and not something that could happen to you. Alice's sister, older sister, was going to come and stay with her for a couple of weeks. And I think she's in real danger. Really understood what was happening. And so I said, yeah, but you could come this week, couldn't you? And then you'd go home, and she's still going to be in danger next week. So that's not that's not a reason at all. And so we sort of talked ourselves down, and actually we should have stayed up there.
And we didn't know that the experts could have told us if we'd known that it was much more serious than that.
It started raining outside, and the dog has curled up close to Alice's parents, Clive and Sue. But there's a pause in conversation because Hannah isn't sure how to ask the next bit. Georgia, the producer, steps in.
Would you rather not talk about the events that kind of led up to that night, or do you mind talking about them?
It was the end of a particularly bad period. He'd been bombarding with messages for days and days, and by this stage Alice was living in a ground floor flat in Gateshead. She's been brought home to the front door by people from work every day, and they were padlocking the front door for safety. And she had a bedroom on the ground floor at the back, but it was the end of terrace, so you could actually get in by hoiking over a wall and into the back. And on this particular evening, her flatmate, she was off in Durham with her own boyfriend. And so Alice was on her own in the flat, and she gets home, she locks the door, and after a while there's a knock at the front door, and she peeps through the keyhole, and there's no one there. And this happens 2 or 3 times through the evening. And then she goes to bed. She's in bed, going to sleep, and there's this knock on the window. It's right behind her bed, and she opens it and opens the curtains, and he's outside. And he's standing on the outside, and he's put some flowers and chocolates on the windowsill on the outside, and is backing off with his hands in the air as if to say, right, I'm going now. And bear in mind, he's come 120 miles from Edinburgh to do this. And then he sends a phone message he dictates it into his phone while he's driving back. And the message is, I came here to give you flowers and chocolates just to show you that I'm not going to kill you. And killing had never occurred to me. And he mentions not killing her about 11 times in this message. And so you can't imagine how she felt. And my friend came round to be with her and persuaded her, I guess, to actually call the police.
Hi there. I just need a bit of advice, really, more than anything.
We're playing these calls with the agreement of Alice's parents.
So I split up with my boyfriend about 3 months ago. Since then, I know that he's hacked into my Facebook and also my phone.
You can hear she's almost apologetic for calling the police and explains what's happening.
I've asked him not to contact me, and tonight I had a knock at my door. And there was no one there, and then it happened again.
She's really laid back about it almost, and saying, "Oh, I'm almost sorry to be a bother."
He's not done anything, but I'm concerned. I've been putting off, like my friends have been telling me to call the police. I've been putting it off, but I just feel a bit like shaken up tonight. So
because Alice was being polite and quiet and calm.
The responder, first of all, didn't identify it as stalking, said it might be harassment.
It's harassment.
Yeah.
Which is a crime.
And the responder who came round the next day was incredibly empathetic and spent a lot of time with her, much more than he should have done. They took out a thing called a police information notice, a PIN, which is basically a piece of paper. But what he erroneously told Alice was if they took out this PIN, then if he ever came to see her again or made contact in any way, he'd be arrested. And so for a week, she just went back to her old self. She felt protected and happy.
But then her ex-boyfriend got the news. He was serving in the army in Scotland, and the police spoke to his superior officer, who told him, stop contacting Alice.
And he responded by instantly sending her a package with some stuff that she left in his things and a letter. And so this thing arrives, and the letter is all about how I came all the way to leave you flowers and chocolates, but now see where it's got me. You've called the police on me. And
he sent me a message as well when he found out she'd called the police, and he was just so angry. He'd written so much of it in capital letters. And Alice was furious that he had, and of course, because that was more evidence that he was continuing to stalk her, so she called the police again.
Hi there. I've been in touch with the police. Somebody's been issued with a PIN so that they can't contact me. However, I've had a letter off them.
Right. Okay. So you're reporting like the breach of the PIN.
Yeah.
What was the content of the letter?
So pictures of me and him, because he's my ex-boyfriend, so like a notebook that I'd sent him when we were together and a letter.
What was the nature of it? Was it like threatening, or was it harassing? Or?
No, not threatening. It's just saying that he knows I called the police on him, and then it says at the bottom he won't contact me. This will be the last I hear from him. But he's said that a lot of times, and he never does seem to stop. Yeah, what's usually what happens with it?
Okay, well, I'll let them know you want someone to contact you back, just discuss what can be done.
Okay. Will it be the police officer that's been dealing with my case?
I can't guarantee who it'll be.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, bye.
Thanks, bye.
This is when the policewoman had said, "What do you want us to do? Arrest him?" And Alice had been forced to say no, or that's how she felt. And after that, she was really, really down, because she felt that now the police weren't going to help us, that weren't going to help at all. She was just so unhappy, and she rang up and I said to her, probably the most stupid thing I've ever said, I said, well, the police don't think he's a danger. If you just ignore him, he will eventually go away. That's what we've got to do, just keep ignoring him. And she was really, really pleased that I'd said that, and she felt much happier. And she obviously went off and told her sister. And within about 10 minutes, her sister rings up and says, "Mum, you can't say that." And she said, "Mummy's stalking her. You know what stalking is, don't you?" And I was sort of like, "Well, yes." And she said, "Well, what happens at the end of deer stalking? What happens to the deer?" And we sort of had a conversation about it. And this is when we were talking about what could we do to protect her, and should she move away, change her name? Could we go on and stay with her? And we sort of felt, I think both of us felt at the end of the day we were just overreacting a little bit, but obviously we weren't, and we should have carried that on. What we didn't realise was that very close to this day, must have been this day or the next day, he drove down to Newcastle and he took photographs of the windows of a flat. And it was only, 5 days from when he contacted her?
7th to the 12th, that's right.
She was at home. She'd been driven home by a friend, and she was talking to her new partner on WhatsApp, and they were just messaging each other, not actually speaking physically. And she suddenly stopped talking to him. He just assumed that, I don't know, someone had come to the door or something, which was what happened, of course. And then 20 minutes later, or not much longer, a flatmate came back to the house because she'd forgotten her phone. She left her phone in the house.
What you are about to hear is incredibly distressing. It's the recording of the 999 call from Alice's housemate. If you want to skip ahead, the clip we're playing lasts 46 seconds.
Go ahead, caller.
Please, I've just come back to my flat and the door was locked, so I crawled through the window and my flatmate's covered in blood in the bathroom.
Is she breathing?
I don't know, I can't look, I'm sorry.
Okay,
I can't
try and stay calm.
Alice! 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 It looks like she's been attacked. Please help.
What's she called?
She's called Alice. Alice, are you awake? I'm telling you, she's dead. I'm so scared, I don't know what to do.
His final story in court was that Alice cut her own throat, which, when you consider it was 6 cuts to her throat, so deep that they went into her spine.
Alice's ex-boyfriend, Treman Dillon, was sentenced to life in prison for her murder. He's serving a minimum of 22 years.
And always, I suppose, I'd sort of dream about it. In my dream, I'd do the right thing. And I used to keep thinking that I could change it, because I could do the right thing, and that now I knew what it was, and it would change. And I still feel really guilty, and sometimes I just think people must think what a terrible mother I am because I didn't help her. I gave her bad advice.
There's nothing that you should have done differently or you could have done differently.
It got Hannah thinking about her own story and how guilty her dad felt about letting her go to Miami, the moment from which everything spiralled.
I was like, Dad, I'm going to Miami. It's going to be fine. And I think, looking back, my dad's like, I wish I'd intervened then, but he also really wanted to let me live my life as a young adult, because I was like, this is what I'm doing. Let me experience it myself. Let me make mistakes. And I would have really felt so suffocated if he, at 23, if he was like, you can't do this. On the one hand, because you know what has happened, you look back and you say, I wish I had done X, Y, and Z. But on the other hand, at 23, you do want your parents to let you make your choices.
I think it's very hard because that controlling personality, when you're in the early days of a relationship, that sometimes can seem really nice and really caring, and it's very easy to get sort of dragged in, and then you suddenly think, hang on a minute, this isn't really what I want. And by then, it's really hard to extricate yourself from it. And I think, actually, you know, she was too polite to just tell him where to get off.
At times, Hannah felt the same as this with Kin when they were still friends, even when his messages seemed a bit too persistent.
I think initially I was like polite, very polite with him, because I also didn't want to rock the boat. I never wanted to inconvenience him. Or
I know exactly what I mean. That's exactly what Alice said. Yeah. Exactly the same.
She just wanted him to move away and get on with his life. She didn't want anything bad for him.
Did it take you a while to think, I need to go to the police?
Yeah, I definitely thought that I could handle everything by myself. And then it picked up very quickly, and then I just knew that I had to.
In Hannah's case, the first thing that happened was that Kin was given a harassment warning. Like the police information notice used in Alice's case, cautions like these have no legal standing, and they don't always work as a deterrent, sometimes even giving victims a false sense of security.
Just the fact that something had been done, he's got a harassment warning. If he breaks it, he is going to get arrested. And I remember feeling like I had my life back for a little bit, and then it did nothing.
The amount of effort your stalker has put into stalking you is phenomenal. And actually that should be a big indicator about how serious the case is. You know, if they're prepared to send emails as if they're somebody else, that's a massive amount of effort they're putting into stalking, and it's quite worrying.
I mean, the police response to stalking has improved an incredible amount in the 6 years since we lost Alice, but at the same time, it's still got a long way to go, and a lot of times they do get it wrong.
Something that seemed so clear to Alice's housemate, even in that extremely distressing moment.
She's only 23. I mean, this was coming up.
Say that again, sorry.
She put in a complaint in about her ex, and she phoned 101 at the weekend to report that he's tried to get in contact, and he says we're going to do nothing. Now this has happened. She put in a statement about him 2 weeks ago. And
about who?
Our ex-boyfriend.
A domestic homicide review found that the authorities involved in Alice's case, including the police and the army, failed her. For Alice's dad, Clive, it's crucial that these failures aren't repeated, especially when stalking victims first reach out for help.
When a victim first phones up, someone like Alice, I mean, she's left it far too long to approach the police, And when she does, she's almost apologetic. And one of the big things we have to do is train the people who answer the 101 calls for the police, because many people, when they do first present, are going to be almost apologetic for it, as Alice was.
I just need a bit of advice, really, more than anything. He's not done anything, but I'm concerned. I've been putting off, like, my friends have been telling me to call the police. I've been putting it off, but I just feel a bit, like, shaken up tonight, so...
Well, it can be.
Have you ever wanted to speak to him after?
I think in the early days I probably did, but having listened to him over for 2 or 3 weeks in court, and how he told lie after lie after lie and kept changing his story to suit whoever was questioning him or whatever he thought would be the best response, I realised that if I talk to him, I won't believe a word he says, and therefore I don't want to talk to him. I am so angry. I am so angry with him because, you know, Alice didn't want him to get into trouble. And that's what he did for her. And I'd just never, ever be able to forgive that.
I could never, ever speak to him again. Never wish to. I'm beyond anger. Well, we had the trial was 6 months after it happened, and I remember that very soon after that we started getting the requests to talk at conferences and things about what had happened, and I think the first one was probably about 8 months after it happened, and I think it was around then we started thinking, well, you know, what can we actually do about this?
We didn't want to lose Alice's name. It was a way of not quite losing her.
There is so much that has to change. Sue and Clive say that it needs to start with education. They run the Alice Ruggles Trust. It's a charity that's aiming to put an end to stalking. And as part of that, they've developed intervention programmes to try and stop young people from stalking.
I think one of the worrying things we found with our the trust work in schools and things is the way that what is becoming normalised in early relationships or whatever. That's something I think with delicate messaging we've got to try and tackle. A lot of our work is around just talking around what makes a healthy relationship, what's unhealthy. I think also there's ways to think about healthy ways of ending a relationship. It's not wrong to be upset if someone wants to finish with you, and it's not wrong to want to get back to them. What's wrong is not to be able to move on from that. It's not what you feel, it's how you act upon that. If people can't move on, it can turn into the sort of obsession that can eventually turn into the sort of thing we're talking about here, and stalking, and we've just got to stop that.
And there's another question, one I'm really interested in too. What role should technology companies have in all this?
Do you think that tech companies do enough? And do you think that they have a responsibility to do more?
Simply no to the first question, yes to the second. I mean, I think there is a responsibility there. I mean, we saw that with Facebook in Alice's case. She knew that he was using her Facebook account to threaten her. All they needed to do was give her control of that back, but she couldn't get it. So at least they allowed her to close down the account in the end. I think there has to be some much more responsibility. And of course, there are many, many tools out there increasing all the time that actually, although they're intended for someone else, like parents keep track on their kids or whatever, are actually enabling people to stalk all the more easily. And that's a big responsibility on the tech companies to be aware of that and to mitigate that aspect of those applications. It almost seems like the rest of the world moves on, but it's always there and a big thing. And of course we have lots of other things in our lives to be happy about, but this is always there.
Yeah, what you said about everybody else moves on, I think that really encompasses it completely, because to me it's like yesterday, but I have to hide that from everybody else because, everybody's lost someone and they don't go on about it all the time. Sometimes I just have to walk away and I'm ruder than I used to be, and I'm harder person than I used to be.
Sue turns to Hannah.
But what you're describing is really extreme and terrible, and it's going to be so brilliant that people hear that, because they hear stories about, there's quite a lot of people like Alice who were stalked and then murdered. And you sort of think, oh yeah, but that won't happen to me because that's a sort of really extreme thing. And they need to know that there's a massive scale, that somebody who maybe stalks you a little bit and then stops, which is just minor, and then what you're having, which is years, and you're talking about losing all your 20s, and that's a really big impact, and it's really important that people know about it.
I moved back in with my dad because I was scared of living alone. Next week I'm moving into a flat for the first time, like alone, just me and my kittens. And I'm really, really scared still. Especially I'm about to launch this, we're going to release this podcast, and so it's like that fear still haunts me.
You're so brave to do this and to say this. I mean, we hear these statistics all the time about how stalking it changes lives. It changes every aspect of people's lives, and of course mentally it has this huge effect which is with people, and you just give voice to that.
That's the really unfair thing, isn't it? That you say your life has changed so much and you've had all this anxiety and you still haven't got over it.
It's tremendous that you're doing what you're doing, and it's tremendous you're doing this series, and it's going to have a huge effect. It only take one person to listen to this and act differently, do something differently, get help or whatever, for it to make an impact.
And you've said things that have made me feel a lot better. When you said that you were only 23 but you were living an independent life and you didn't want to take, you didn't want to take advice, not quite sure how you put it, and I thought actually that's what Alice would have said as well. Also, I felt less bad about not having done the right thing.
Next time on Stalked, we return to kin and another piece of the puzzle we've been trying to figure out.
Please call me via WhatsApp if you want to know the truth, as I do.
The girlfriend. Kin said there never was a girlfriend, that it was just the hackers pretending to be her.
That's the one who says it's the girlfriend.
But as we go back through the emails, we find a telephone number.
Is that number...
I haven't tried it yet, but yeah, at some point we're going to have to call.
Wow.
You never called that number?
No. Maybe it was hackers and they gave his girlfriend's number. Or maybe it was actually his girlfriend giving her number. Or maybe it was hackers giving a number of a colleague of his just to...
We don't know. I mean, do you know?
No. I have no idea. Do you?
Well, we now know Kin did have a girlfriend.
But the number she gave has been active on WhatsApp.
What's the picture?
And the number we have is a real one.
So we can just... have you got a burner phone?
So we're going to call it.
But I think we want to ring and see what the voice is.
Yeah.
But we're only going to have one
shot.
And it's
all right, let me try this number.